Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Writer's Corner live show. It's that time of the week again. We connect authors to each other and help readers find new authors to love. You probably already have your favorite type of book, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. But you never know. We may just introduce you to your new favorite genre to love, or even help you discover some books that don't quite fit into any one of the traditional genres. You will meet both seasoned as well as new and aspiring authors. Some of our seasoned authors will share their tips and tricks of how to get published right the first time. On the Writer's Corner live show, you will meet, you will hear the backstories straight from the horse's mouth. So join us live for the insider scoop. Hello, and everyone, welcome to the show. If you're watching us live, you can leave questions for us in the comments, or if you're watching us on the replay, then do let us know where in the world you are watching from. I'm going to welcome my co-host, Mary.
Hi, Brigetti. How are you?
Hi,
Hi, how are
I'm very
you?
well, and yourself? I'm
Oh,
good,
very
I'm good.
well.
Can't complain.
Oh, good. That's a
Another
good
great,
day.
another Absolutely, it is. And I can't wait to speak to our guest. We've got Mark Wayne Adams this week, and he is a novelist and an illustrator.
Mhm.
I don't think we've had an illustrator yet before, have we?
Nope, he's our first one, so I'm super excited.
I know I am because Mark has got 60 books, and of his authors, 100 of them have won book awards.
Yeah.
So Mark's quite a famous person.
Yes, Mark is. He
And
is very
it's
busy.
great that he's agreed to be on our show. And he's actually doing a book tour. But shall we bring him on and we can hear all about it?
Yeah, let's let him tell everybody. Absolutely.
I know, I mean, we kind of know part of his backstory, but it's always nice when the authors tell their own story because no one else can do it quite the way they do it. So let's
Right.
bring Mark on, shall we?
Absolutely.
Hello, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Mark. Good morning.
How are you doing, Mary?
Oh, I'm doing good. It's colder where you are than where I am, isn't it? Just a
Yes,
little
I am actually in my hometown where it all started. So this is where my writing and illustration career started at the same library. I'm on an 8-week book tour, and this is the first week of it.
That is so awesome. I didn't, how many books would you say? Because to let everybody know, you and I met almost exactly a year ago
Right.
at the Nashville Southern Festival of Books. Your tent was next door to ours. I was in the tent for my publisher, and you were in the tent with your publisher, or a publishing company that you're with, correct?
Right. I am affiliated with numerous publishing companies, and that's the
Yes.
publishing company that just purchased my children's division. I had a publishing branch of children's books. We had 16 different authors, and SYP Publishing merged with my company, and now we're an imprint of SYP Publishing.
That is so exciting. So they're out of Tallahassee. If anybody's interested in submitting, I'm not sure if you all are taking submissions right now, but they can always check on the web and see if submissions are open. So how does that, I have a million questions for you, and I know Brigetti does too, and we only have 30 minutes, but how does that work with how you were as an individual, and then now you've merged with SYP? How does that all work? And how many books did you publish since I've seen you in a year?
Okay, so I am no longer publishing, but SYP is my publisher now. So since then, we have published 3 titles with SYP, and I've also worked with 2 other publishing companies and illustrated books for them. But when I first started in this business, I had illustrated for probably 15 different authors and publishers. And I had a story that I wanted to publish on my own. And the publisher said, no one will buy it. And I was like, are you kidding? I do public speaking. I see thousands of kids. They'll buy my book because they're buying all the other books, and I only illustrated them. And so no publisher would take the book. So I formed my own publishing company because I had worked for Disney, SeaWorld, had been an art director, and managed a printing company. I had enough of professional experience that I knew how this business worked. And so I published my first book, and I learned that I didn't know everything about publishing because the second half of publishing is not only the printing and the producing the product, it's marketing it. And so 10 years, well, it's actually 11 years this year. I've been publishing and illustrating kids' books and doing public speaking. So a lot of people are worried that if they independently publish their first book, that they won't be successful. Well, sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith, because if you have the background and the experience, when someone tells you no, it's just because they don't understand why. And so I knew I had a market of kids that I could sell those books to. So publishing for me was the best fit. And the great thing about it was I kept 80% of the profit, because 10% of the profit was marketing and producing the product. That helped me to fund my next book and the next book. And when you're making 80% instead of 10%, you can make smarter choices as a publisher. But as an author, if you're only making 7 to 10%, it takes a lot of books to earn enough money back to reinvest.
Right. So what advice would you give? I know Brigetti has a question. Go ahead. You go ahead.
That's a great point you made there. But before we go into that, because, you know, it's a point where a lot of authors get stuck making the right decision with regards to publishing. And I want to pick up on the point that you said there, that part of that process of publishing is marketing. And it's a huge part of the process that sometimes authors forget about. You know, it's not just about getting the book onto paper. There has got to be a marketing budget. But I want you to tell everyone quickly, what is it that first got you started as an author and illustrator? What was your motivation?
Well, I write a lot about family. So the first thing that got me started in illustrating books was I always wanted to be an animator. So I draw very quickly. And my first publisher, I illustrated the first book in 30 days, the second book in 45 days. The publisher said, wow, if you keep doing this, you're going to make a ridiculous amount of money in this business. And I asked the publisher why. And the publisher said, because most illustrators take about 6 months to a year to illustrate a book, and you've done 2 in less than a month and a half. And so at that point in time, I only made $500 off of these 2 projects. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to quit because I'm not making enough money. But I've always been a part of the library because my mother was a librarian. And I walked into the library one day and I asked the librarian, I said, is there a book that tells you how much every illustrator gets paid, like a standard? And she says, yeah, you've been walking past it for years. She just pointed to the shelf. And once I saw what other illustrators were getting paid, I understood exactly what that publisher meant. So that was kind of an inspiration for me to build my business. I knew that if I could illustrate 8 books a year, that I would actually be making what I was making at my day job. And it is a business. Publishing is a business. And if you want to become a professional writer or a professional illustrator, you have to set some goals for yourself. You have to know how much you're going to get paid, how much you're not going to get paid, because there are a lot of things you do pro bono that, you know, it pays off in the end.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So being realistic about what you can expect when you put out your first book, especially, is important, I would imagine, because if you have unrealistic expectations about authoring a book and they're not met, you very likely will stop there and not go to your next book.
Exactly. Most people don't understand that the average print cost for a book is about $5. And if it retails for $15, that's the profit that someone makes on it. So as an author, if they're going to buy their books from their publisher or their publishing house, that book is going to cost them $5. And if they sell it for $10, they've only made $5 profit. But if they sell it for $15, they've made $10 profit. You have to look at the number of books you need to sell. You need to sell, not that you want to sell, but the books that you need to sell to profit from any event. And for example, when I go to an event like Nashville, the Southern Festival of Books, I write down the number of books I need to sell to make back my expenses when I'm traveling to Nashville. And if I can't do that, then I don't attend an event like that. And most authors don't look at it that way. You know, they're very creative. They don't, you know, they may work a day job where they're an accountant, but they just can't, they don't think about this in the process.
That's important. So you basically, so what you're saying is basically, and I think you and I had this conversation last year, you need to plan on how many you need to sell, not want to sell, or you just don't do it, the event. Is basically how you're, and it is a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically setting up a budget for yourself. And I think the greatest thing that I ever did was marry an accountant. She's a CPA, and she's given me this mathematical perspective. So, and by doing this, I've been able to stay in business. And the great thing about it is also by doing this, I've made a profit at some events where I can actually give back at some point in time. And that's the greatest thing about this is reaching your readers. And as an author, you are the face behind your book. People want to know what inspired you to write the book. You know, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? You know, are you grumpy in the mornings? You know,
crazy questions.
Yeah, this isn't in the book. Right. This is inspired by the book, because I know my favorite authors that once I read the book, I wanted to know them. I wanted to hang out with them because they understood me. And so when you're marketing your book, the best thing to do is, you know, number one, you know, be social. Number two, write in a series, because if they bought the first book, they're going to buy the second book because they have already connected with you. Yeah. And then, you know, just be social. You know, go out there, meet the people, shake hands. You know, I'm constantly on my knees because I'm a children's book illustrator. So I bend down and I look the kids in the face and we carry on a conversation. I'm on my knees. So, but it's getting to know the reader.
So Mark, in the same way that readers want to connect on a personal level with their authors, do you find that at some level you have to do that with the, you know, with the authors you connected when you illustrate their books? Do you have to take some time to get to know them so that your illustrations are more connected and effective in the book?
Yes, I have a set of questions that I ask each author that I work with. And most of the authors that I work with, number one, what's your profession? Because based on their profession, I kind of, over the years, have found the person I like to work with. So number one, I like to work with teachers. I attend school visits. It makes sense for me to work with teachers. The second thing I look for is a book that is written in a series. That way I know what I'm going to be doing for the next 5 years. You know, if I illustrate one this year, one next year, and one the following year, or two a year, I know what my schedule's like. And the third thing I look for in an author is someone who adds educational content to their book. Now, it doesn't have to be inside the book, but on their website, they have a beyond the book reading experience. For example, like a teacher may have a scavenger hunt or the reading skill levels for each grade level for that book. So by having those things, my book, when I do school visits, it reaches not only the students, but the parents and the teachers, because the teachers can use the book in the classroom. So those are some, you know, basic questions I ask. But then I have, once we have agreed that I would take on the project, what I do is I give them homework. So I ask them to tell me what their 5 favorite books are. And then I ask ask them to go to Barnes & Noble or a local bookstore, and I say, pick out 5 brand new books you've never seen before that you would buy immediately. And they don't have to buy them. They just tell me what the titles are. So I compare the 2 books, and I determine the book size, because if they like square books, they'll pick out all square books. Mm-hmm. And if they like watercolor, they'll pick out all watercolor illustrations. And then even down to the paper type inside the book. Because I worked for a printing company, I look at all of these things, and by the time I've interviewed the author, I know the size, the paper type, the number of pages, and the illustration style.
That is amazing. This very clever way of determining all those things before you've even met the author, and that's half the job done. So it's kind of not working harder, it's working smarter.
Right.
But in order to work smarter, you've got to know all these little nuances about getting a book published, which that's why interviews, the opportunity to speak to someone like you is so phenomenal, because there's a lot of people out there who want to get started, but they just cannot take the next step because they don't know what the process is.
Right, right. It's a kind of a mystery unless you find somebody who is already published or doing it. It really is quite difficult. Even finding a publisher is challenging.
Well, no, finding a publisher is not as challenging as most people think.
Okay.
Here's a couple of good tips. 3 good tips. Number 1, open your favorite book, favorite genre, whatever you're writing in. Open the front cover of the best-selling book in that genre. It has the publisher's contact information in it.
Right.
On the copyright page. All you have to do is find out how many, it even tells you where the website is. It tells you how many books they publish a year in that genre. There's not just one publisher in the world. You probably have more than one favorite book. So open the second favorite book, read who the publisher is, see how many books they publish each year. That's one way to find a good publisher. Number 2, most all writers are a part of a writing group. At some point, your craft is done. You do need people to check your work as a resource, but your craft is as good as it's ever going to get. So what you need to do is join a publishing organization. So I'm the former president of the Florida Authors and Publishers Association. It's a network of 150 different publishers, all different genres. So if you want to meet a publisher, hang out with publishers.
There you go.
So those are 2 really good tips. The third one is, if you're not located in Florida, there's a group called the Independent Book Publishers Association. It's a national organization for the United States, and join that organization because there are thousands of publishers in that organization. So you are who you hang out with. So if you're a writer, you hang with writers groups. If you're an author, you hang with publishing and author groups.
Okay.
So even if you're not a published author yet, it's very important, once your writing craft is well, as well as you can get it, hang out with a publishing group or an author group, someone who has published works, because they'll tell you what their experience was like. And don't ask bad questions. So every question is, who is the best publisher you've worked with? Where is the best event you've ever attended? How many books have you sold at that event? Why would I want to go to that event? Ask the positive questions, because you can find loads of negative comments online, anywhere. But if you have that moment with a professional, don't waste it on, how do you feel? Because then they'll say, oh, kind of tired, and you missed out on the one question you could have asked them. What's the best thing I could learn from you?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. Mark, thank you for this advice. This is going to be really great for anybody who's watching this morning or on the replay, because, these are questions that people have, whether they're published once or self-published or published a bunch or looking for a publisher. when I wrote the first book that I have out, when I wrote it, I sat on it for 2 years because I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know if anyone would even like it. I knew I loved it. I knew what it stood for, what it meant, but I remember just kind of going, okay, God, I don't know what to do. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to ask. So I actually asked someone who was academically published. Sure. And then what you find out then is that they don't know children's publishers because it's a whole different genre. So, but he introduced me to Thornton Klein, and then Thornton wrote the songs, and then we submitted, and he'd already had a book published by Black Rose Writing. So that's kind of how it all happened. Right. And it's just, it's you got to keep knocking down those doors and not give up when you believe in something that you've done. Right. It's scary, but I always tell people, you got to take a chance on yourself, no matter how old you are.
And one publisher may not publish what you publish, and they may not have the experience. Like you said, they were the first publisher you went to didn't have experience with children's books. Children's books are a totally different outlet because they don't have a online presence usually. Most of your readers, especially if it's picture books, they're just learning to read. They don't even know how to write yet. So they don't have an online presence. So for the longest time, it was so difficult for me to communicate because I know my kids, when they were growing up, I kept them off the internet as much as possible. I didn't post pictures of them. I didn't share when I left town. So, it was like the secret life. You keep, you protect your kids. Right. So in the children's market, you really have to make a connection with bookstores, public libraries, school libraries, public places, because that's how you're going to reach your target audience. And then also, you have to be aware of the type of people who come to those events as well, because, just because there's someone super friendly and nice does not mean they're a good person. So then you have this whole other thing you have to consider when you're writing for children's books is, the safety around yourself and who you hang out with.
Right, absolutely.
I think that's an aspect that people tend to forget about, especially because so much is online these days. And, I personally am always very aware of safety online, especially around children. I mean, those are good points that you mentioned there. Sure. You never want to put your audience or yourself or your own children in harm's way. Sure. And so what you're saying is that a lot of the events, marketing events for children's books, would be offline, not online, because that's not where the little ones hang out.
Sure. And also photographs, most people don't want their children photographed and put online. So, there's a whole different aspect to socializing when you are doing children's books. But also the same thing applies when you become your own author, because I write in a middle grade genre as well. Now there is social media everywhere for those books, and everyone wants to get a picture and everyone wants to be your friend, and you have to also be aware of, whether there are people just spamming you as an author. So, have a separate Facebook page, have a separate Twitter account from your personal accounts. And, it's not because you're trying to be someone fake. It's to protect yourself online as well. Right. I haven't had any crazy fans, but I've had people come up to me and go, "I'm your biggest fan." And I think, "Oh man, that Stephen King novel."
Yeah. Yeah. That would be a little scary. You're like, "You don't have a knife, do you?"
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But I mean, it's fun. I really love books. This is the longest career I've had. Every 4 to 5 years I would change, professional careers, because I would go in as an entry level and come out as a manager, and I wasn't doing what I started out doing. But I've been in this business for 11 years. I've traveled all over the United States, outside of the United States. It's just fun to see your passion affect other people. So I definitely say, if you're going to write a book, don't write it for you and the people directly around you. Write it for that random person that lives on the other side of the world that you're going to meet and affect and make these friendships. So
that's good. That's good advice. And I wanted to ask you, so for anybody who wants to go into public speaking or doing touring or, speaking about being a children's author or an author period, how do you get connected that way? How do you set your own book tour, or does somebody do that for you?
Well, the first thing I would recommend is to read a book called Schools, a Niche Market for Authors. If you want, I can give you the link to the book. That book is written,
can put it. Yeah, she can put it in the comments after the show. Sure.
Well, that's written by author Jane Wood, and she also does public speaking in schools. She speaks to kids from 3rd through 5th grade. I read her book and I endorsed the book because it's very similar to what I do. I've had publicists for several years, and they try to help me, but they don't know my schedule completely. And so I took over, and I've been really in charge of it. And what I did was, in the beginning, you need a contact list of people. So the best way to start making a contact list of people is to get to know librarians, schools, and don't just get the general school email address. Look for either the library media specialist, the art instructor, because I'm an illustrator, it makes sense that I would come in and speak on art. And then also the guidance counselor, because you can speak on your profession. So get those contact informations for different schools. Start out locally. So like if you live in one county, get to know everyone in that county that is associated with it. And then get to know the counties all around. And then once you get to know all of those counties, you can go into the schools, and it's within like 30-minute drive or an hour drive for you, back and forth. So you're keeping your costs low. And then develop a budget. How much do you get paid an hour? So if you're getting paid $25 an hour at your day job, you got to get paid $25 an hour when you go to the school. And then also you charge your travel. So it's $25 if it takes you an hour to drive there. If you stay for 5 hours, it's $125. So 125 plus 50, that's $175 you would charge for your visit. And most people say, oh, I don't want to charge the school. Well, have the school buy $175 worth of books. So that way you've made your money back and you're getting paid. Because if you do something for free and then someone doesn't even know your name when you show up, then you spend all day long with this hate inside of you because you're there and you're spending your time and no one knows your name.
Right.
So it is okay to charge, and that's how you get started, is just start locally. And then what happens is you go to an event, for example, Nashville. I don't live in Nashville, but I've been asked to come back many, many times because I've gotten to know teachers and professionals there that say, hey, come back and speak here. And I'm like, well, great. I'll be in there through your area in October. Is that good? And they say yes. So that's how you start growing your book tour. But start out locally. I actually have a blog post on my blog that if you type in public speaking, it should pull up that information. And then you can actually go step by step, because there's even more things that I can tell you that makes it so efficient that you're like, wow, I'll never need a publicist. I can do this on my own.
That's awesome. Wow.
Mark, a quick question. Do you publish only your own books, or do you publish for other authors as well?
And I'll give some tips here. Number one, in the beginning, I published not only for myself, but for other authors. When you do become a publisher and you have multiple authors, you spend more time promoting everyone else than you do yourself. So if you're going to start a publishing company and write, I suggest that you only publish your own books, because once you publish other people's books, your time is limited in marketing your own. So I learned that after 8 years of publishing for other people, that I was like, man, I am never getting my stuff done. My stuff keeps getting pushed to the side. So if you're going to be a writer or an illustrator, don't be the publisher for other people, because I'm full of ideas. Like, I have thousands of ideas, and I'm finally able to start working on those now that my publishing company is merged. So it's been a great year, because I've released 3 novels, and not this year, but in the past 2 years, 3 novels. And then I'm working on a couple of picture books of my own. So this is fun.
That is awesome.
Mark, that was some of the greatest advice we've had on the show so far. Really practical advice for anyone who wants to get into either illustrating or publishing. Where's the best place for people to connect with you?
They can connect with me through my website. It's markwayneadams.com. If they have a question, just type in their questions, and my blog is usually me answering other people's questions. And if they find a question that they ask and it's not on there, have them email me. They can email straight through the website. They can follow me on social media. Everything is Mark Wayne Adams, all one word, lowercase, and they can find me almost anywhere.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. And that's another great tip, to keep everything uniform. Keep your contact information uniform, your usernames throughout social media, keep them uniform. It makes you easier. It makes you more discoverable.
Exactly. And also, if you start your publishing company, here's one tip: don't make it your name. Because I started my publishing company, my company name is Mark Wayne Adams Inc. And then everything else is Mark Wayne Adams. And every time I see my name, I'm like, oh, I got to type it again. So if there's something you enjoy, make your company a different name, so that whenever you type it, you're not typing your name.
Right. So can people go to your website if they want to, like if anybody's watching this today or on the replay, can they go to your website to book you if they wanted to book you for, an event to come and talk or illustrate, show the kids, whatever? Can they do that on your website?
It will be under workshops. Okay. And I have my K through 12 workshops. I also have professional workshops. I was just at the Chattahoochee Writers Association, or Chattahoochee Writers Conference in Columbus, Georgia. They invited me to come up. So I travel quite a bit. So any organization that would like me to come and visit, I have loads of tips and information.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so glad you came on today. I'm so glad we got to interview you. And, you really are full of a lot of knowledge and information, and it's super helpful. And I'm excited for all that you're doing. You're living your dream, you're living your passion, you're seeing what's in your head coming in, it's out in the world and it's coming to fruition. And there's just no feeling like that in the whole world. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and there's another thing to remember. This didn't happen overnight. Okay.
No, right. That's another point. Yes. Very important.
The first book is your most difficult book, because you have, for example, like you sat on your book for 2 years, just contemplating, and the stress and the worry you put behind that first book. Do the work, treat it like work, finish it, move on to the next one, because your second book is going to be even better than your first book because of your learning. If you take 2 years off from your learning, it's going to take you twice as long to be successful in this business. Write your book, have it professionally edited, take the notes on your next book, and rewrite write your next book using the notes from what you've gotten from your editor in your previous book. And if the editor is working on your first book, don't sit there and twiddle your fingers. Start writing your second book, because there will be something in the second book that'll make your first book even better. And if you're already writing your second book, you can get to it before it's even published. So, don't sit still, keep moving forward. And it may take you a couple of weeks for the next step and the next step and the next step, but do something every day. And one of the greatest things I've done as a writer is my laptop, which I'm looking at right now. On the opposite side, it says markwayneadams.com, award-winning author and illustrator.
Oh, I like it.
Because as a writer, I write in public.
It's brilliant.
And to promote my writing, I put it on my laptop, and that way, every time someone sees me, they're making me work. They'll come up and say, "Oh, what are you writing?" And I'm like, "I haven't written anything today." And they're like, "Oh, but it says you're a writer." And I'm like, "All right, I guess I got to write something."
That's awesome. I love it.
Let the world know you've
written
something, and they'll keep checking on you. So
that's awesome.
That's a great way to end the show, because you've got to let people, whatever it is you do, and in the case of you writing now, you've got to let people know you're open for business. Unless you tell them, they're not going to know about your book or your illustrations or anything about you. So marketing is an absolute key to success. And if you miss out on that, and you can turn anything into a marketing opportunity. But it's not going to just fall into your lap. You have to create the moment, right?
Oh yeah, and there's another good way is just, you can buy these little pens that say, "Ask me about my book." Wear that on your lapel whenever you go into public, and people will say, "So, it says ask you about your book. Can you tell me about your book?"
That's really cool.
That's just one way to start a conversation that, as an author, we're so introverted that, most people don't know what other people are doing on their laptop. But if you advertise what you're doing, then it's going to start a conversation.
That is awesome. I love it. I've thought about getting one of the magnets for the side of my car, that has the cover of my book or the books, and then just where the links are.
Yeah. Well, be a safe driver. Be a safe driver.
Yes.
Because then they'll know how to find you the other way too.
This is true. Yeah. I might reconsider that. Somebody else did that, and I thought, because I see those stickers on people's cars advertising their businesses, and I thought, that's not a bad idea.
I do it when I'm parked, because like in a parking lot, if you go to, for example, you go to like a Walmart, you stick it on the back of your car. People are driving by and walking by, and it's in the perfect location. Hundreds of people are walking by. So
absolutely. Well, you know what? I hope you write a tips and trick book at some point, because that would probably do very well.
Well, the thing about it is the industry is changing every day.
Yes.
So one tip today may not work tomorrow, and it may come back again and work for someone else, because in different locations, different things work. So if you're trying something and you live in Minnesota and it's not working, that doesn't mean it's not going to work in Florida. So.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, thank you so much for coming today and visiting us and taking some time off on your book tour. And can people also go to your website and kind of see where you are, depending on where they are? You might be in their area. They can come see you.
Usually that's on my social media. So I post it on my social media rather than my website, because it changes so quickly.
Okay.
But my next location is going to be North Carolina. I'll be in Ladson, North Carolina at the Christmas in the South from Friday until Sunday.
Okay.
And then I will be at a writers group back in Hanson, Kentucky next week. And then I go to Columbus, Georgia again.
Wonderful. Well, that's so exciting. Well, thank you for coming. And, we'll have to have you come back on again at some point. Sure. Absolutely. Because you're like. All right. Thank you, Mark, so much.
Thank you.
This has been awesome. Thanks, Mark. Maybe we'll invite you back after your book tour and hear some more about how that went.
Well, I'll probably be in my pajamas, because once I get off the book tour, I let this big beard grow.
That's okay. We can take scruffy Mark. We'll be all right.
All right. That's fine.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Mark. Don't go anywhere. We're just going to end the show, and then we can hang around in the green room for a second.
Sure.
Well, that was a great, fun interview, wasn't it, Mary?
Yeah, absolutely. Very enjoyable, very, very knowledgeable. He's got some great information, and I hope that it helped people who are watching. I really do, and get to watch the replays. It helped me. I always learn something when I talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some great, and I really would encourage everyone who didn't get around to watching the show live, please do watch the replay of this particular show. Lots and lots of helpful information if you want to get started in the industry. So thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll be back again next week. And we look forward to seeing you again. Have a great week until then. From me and from Mary, it's goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.